Hey guys, what's up? Greg's Gauntlet here. Now, the Galaxy S8 just came out last Friday, and I'm still working on my review, but I kind of wanted to give you some quick impressions before my full review with the 4 things I love about the Galaxy S8 and the 4 things I hate. So let's get right into it. The first thing I love about the Galaxy S8 is this display. Now, the display is a 2960 by 1440 OLED screen with 570 pixels per inch. It also has an 18 by 5 by 9 aspect ratio. It's a weird aspect ratio. It's, the first phone with this aspect ratio. LG uses a similar aspect ratio for the G6, but this is a completely new aspect ratio. And basically what that means is the phone is taller and skinnier, so it's easier to hold in one hand. So, when you're scrolling something on like any web page, you get extra content when you're scrolling vertically. Like on a desktop or on a laptop or, maybe even on a tablet, you'd want more vertical space so you can see extra content. But on phones, you're basically scrolling down vertical lists, looking at sites that are optimized for this vertical layout, so you do get some extra space. There are some sacrifices to this, like when you're watching like a video, sometimes you can't get the full thing without stretching it out. I don't really mind this too much on a mobile device. I think it works fine when you're stretching out certain types of video on it. On the Galaxy S8, you do get some kind of, video on the side here. I can actually kind of live with it. I mean, when you're watching mobile video, you're not really too concerned about how accurate it's looking. You just kind of want something to look really nice and show off. But for, people who are nitpicky, that might be a problem for them. But I really think this screen looks great for any task. It's super easy to use one-handed, and it just looks amazing, vivid. Best display on a smartphone I've ever used. So the second thing I love about this phone, I kind of covered it in the first topic, but I think it kind of deserves its own spot, is the size of this phone. So because this screen is now taller and they shrunk the bezels down like really, really small, you can actually hold this phone very easily. It's very easy to fit in a pocket, very easy to carry around with you. You just get all this extra screen real estate in a very small package. It's actually smaller than, say, the iPhone 7 Plus over here, and you get a smaller, body and a bigger screen. The iPhone 7 Plus has a 5.5-inch screen. The Galaxy S8 has a 5.8-inch screen, and you get all this screen real estate in a smaller body than the iPhone 7 Plus. Now, the third thing I love about the Galaxy S8 is definitely the camera. I actually thought I was going to put this in my negative list when I first got the phone. I heard that the Galaxy S8 actually had the same camera as the S7 Edge. Not that the S7 Edge was a bad camera, but there's been some improvement along the line with smartphone cameras. But the Galaxy S8 actually optimizes its software to help it take better pictures. So it is the same camera. It is a 12 megapixel, optical image stabilization with a f-stop of 1.7, but they've done a lot of software optimization. So when I've been taking pictures, I've been noticing that low light performance is actually really good on the S8. Is it better than, say, like the iPhone 7 Plus camera? I'd say they're very similar. I think you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference. I personally like the iPhone 7 Plus camera a little better just because you do get the 2 lens options on the iPhone 7 Plus, which means you get a normal lens and then a 2 times zoom lens. And also you get that portrait mode, which I really do like on the iPhone 7 Plus, but, just for normal everyday photos, I think it's hard to tell the difference. I'm really impressed with the Galaxy S8's camera. Now, the fourth thing I actually really liked on the Galaxy S8 was the iris scanner. I've been hearing a lot of bad things about the iris scanner, that it's slow, that it doesn't work all the time. Now, everyone knows that the Galaxy S8 has a bad fingerprint reader on the back that's really hard to reach. It's right next to the camera, so you're constantly hitting the camera instead of the fingerprint, and you're dirtying up that nice camera I just talked about. But I actually have been really impressed with the iris scanner. I know a lot of reviewers have had problems with the iris scanner. Facial recognition itself isn't that secure. The iris scanner is secure, so I've been using that, and I've been unlocking my phone no problem using the iris scanner. I think it's really fast and responsive. So far, haven't had any issues with it. It really surprised me, especially from the early impressions I've been, reading, saying, that the iris scanner was slow, that it didn't always work. I've had a very high success rate with it. I open my phone, line up the eyes really quick, and it does it. Sometimes I don't even have to line up the eyes. I just open my phone and, it's already unlocked. Now let's get into the things I hate about this phone, and I do mean hate. I mean, I'm not, this is a strong word, hate. I do hate these features on this phone. The first and most obvious thing I hate about this phone, and everyone talks about it, is that fingerprint fingerprint sensor. The placement on it is absurd. I know that Samsung was working on implementing the fingerprint sensor right onto the screen here, and they couldn't do it in the last minute. They had to change the design. They moved it to the back, and they moved it in the worst spot. They put it right next to the camera, so you're constantly hitting the camera. It's really hard to hit. It's really hard to set up. It took me about like 2 to 3 minutes just to scan one fingerprint, and it was such a painful process. I really wish they could have put it right here. Samsung's engineers said that they didn't want to put it there because apparently it was right next to the battery, and they really, really didn't want to risk anything going wrong with the batteries. But come on, I mean, the Google Pixel and so many other Android phones already put this fingerprint sensor right here on the back. It's very easy to touch. I just don't understand why they couldn't do it. The second thing I hate about this phone is Bixby. Samsung pitched this voice assistant Bixby as the next big thing, but it's just a giant flop right now. Half the features don't even work. The voice for Bixby doesn't work. And right now it's just kind of like this glorified notification zone. It even has this camera, Bixby Vision, that doesn't work half the time. I used it on the Samsung box. I've used it on products I've had lying around here. I've used it on phones. I point the camera at it. It can't even guess what product I'm looking at. I even point it at like an Apple mouse. It gave me like chargers, headphones from Apple. I mean, I guess, you know, they're white Apple products, but it just doesn't work. It's not a good assistant. It's slow. The cards aren't that useful. It said it would learn, you know, your traits over time, but, you know, it gives me like baseball stats and sports stats, and I'm not even into sports, so I don't know why it's giving me all this useless information. So I really don't like Bixby. I think it's a giant flop. And, you know, Samsung says they're going to have the voice assistant part out later this spring. And, you know, one of the big problems with that is Samsung is completely dependent on the carriers getting the updates out. So, you know, we could be waiting quite a while before we even see what Bixby's capable of. And even when that does launch, I don't think it's going to be anything mind-blowing based on, you know, what initially they have out for Bixby. Bixby sucks. It's not a reason to get the phone. Don't get Bixby. And the worst part is they have a dedicated button for Bixby. So you have this useless button here, and you accidentally press it all the time, and you get Bixby. The third thing I hate about this phone, and I've talked about this in my S7 Edge review when I got that, is the bloatware. It's on every Samsung phone. It's no different. I don't need to spend too much time going on over it. There are so many duplicate apps with the Galaxy S8. You got tons of AT&T apps. That's the carrier I have. They just come pre-installed on the phone. There's nothing you can do about it. You got duplicate messaging apps from Google. You have duplicate photo apps. You got all these, you know, bloatware apps again from AT&T. You got 2 pay systems, Samsung Pay, Android Pay. It's just not a nice experience for the user, especially, you know, I know a lot about smartphones. It's no problem for me setting up like Android Pay or for Samsung Pay. But, you know, for someone else who's just getting Android for the first time, or, you know, someone who's not well versed in a smartphone, they get this and they're just confused. They got Android Pay, they got Samsung Pay, they got 2 photo apps. They got to pick and choose. You know, just ship Google's version. They do it a lot better than Samsung. Or if you're gonna ship Samsung's versions of these apps, then, you know, tell Google, sorry, you can't have the message app on here by default. You can't have your photo app by default. We believe in our software. We're gonna ship our software. At least do that, and then give people the option to download your software through the store. The fourth thing I hate about the Galaxy S8 is this home button right here. It's a virtual home button. Samsung's usually, you know, I think they've always done a physical home button on their phone. This time it has a virtual home button. I thought it was going to be a lot like the iPhone 7 Plus. They have a virtual home button in like a physical spot, but when you click it, it feels like a click. You know, you'd be hard pressed to actually think that it feels like a vibration. It feels like a click every time you do it. This just feels like a vibration. I don't really like the way it feels when I click it. It just isn't a good, you know, tactile feel for me. I know a lot of Android phones have virtual buttons. I'm just not really a big fan of virtual buttons, and I really thought when, you know, I heard about the Galaxy S8 that they were going to have this home button embedded into the screen. I really thought they were going to go, you know, Apple's route, make it feel as much as a click as like their trackpads or like, you know, the iPhone 7 Plus does, but it just feels like a cheap vibration. You know, it's force sensitive a little bit, but even so, when you're clicking it, it just doesn't have that nice feedback. You're pressing harder and you're just getting a vibration back. And you know, you can click it normally and it doesn't matter. There's no pressure sensitivity. It's just a regular virtual home button. There's no improvement there. All right, guys, those are the 4 things I love about the Galaxy S8 and the 4 things I hate about the Galaxy S8. If you love it or you hate it, let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.